I mean, there are quite a lot of examples in nature which I have used. The wing of a dragonfly is almost transparent, transparent skin, slightly opaque, but lets in a lot of daylight. And it would be wonderful to have a sort of framework building where the cladding of it was actually alive and growing and changing over the seasons. So you can have skins which can be tuned up like a piano, opened and closed, and letting in more ventilation or less, or that kind of thing. With the Eden project, for instance, we studied the structure of butterfly wing or a dragonfly wing, and how the structure often formed into a hexagon, and which nest very well together. And when they come to a solid barrier of some sort, it's very interesting how the hexagons open out and always hit it at right angles. Nature deals with structures. It's absolutely fantastic. The root structure of a tree echoing the structure above the ground. A good structure, you can trace the load from the outer part of the structure through the building and down to the ground. You won't find structures in nature which aren't extremely efficient and effective, any more than you will in for instance, a sailing boat, which I always like to say, they're beautiful because I'm a sailor, but boats are beautiful because they're functional, and then you won't find a single item on a yacht which is actually there for decoration. It's extreme efficiency, which is very nice to see.
My work is 100% influenced by the ecology of the environment. Ecology is the environmental biology of nature, and so our work is influenced by the attributes and properties of ecosystems. The principles I'm working on now is how to design buildings that imitate the attributes and properties of ecosystems, and if possible, we could even replicate it, because if our buildings imitate and replicate ecosystems, then they become part of nature. We do not have any dislocation between our built environment and the natural environment, which is what's happening now. And so nature influences what we do 100%. Now nature has limitations, has what you call levels of resilience. What is our attitude to nature? And that's what we need to inculcate in people, a respect for the ecology of the environment. And so when you talk about climate change and impairment, it comes down to people. What is our attitude towards nature? What is our ideology and mindset towards nature? And that's what we need to change.
Nature itself does not really exist. We've created an erroneous concept of a nature that comes from some biblical or mythological Greek sources. But we know that there is no such nature, and that this nature is also dependent on micro dynamics of cells, of particles, of the DNA. And so these are really vast questions. How will architecture really move forward into the future? What are the challenges that are coming in our sphere, in our Anthropocene, and how will we actually survive? It's more than a question of adaptation. It's really, more critically, a question of survival. We assume we will survive, but that assumption is really, might be illusory if we don't act on our environment, if we don't act politically to change the attitude to the city and to how we live, if we don't use the solidarity of human beings around the planet, the notion of sustainability, and that is memory. We can say that nature is one of the oldest memories we have, sealed not only in text, but in spaces and in places around the planet Earth. And so I think memory might be the fundamental dimension of nature and of sustainability.
I walk a lot. I run a lot. I run a lot in the countryside. And I've always loved that experience of going from a windswept or sun-baked openness to passing through a forest and feeling that climatic transition. And I think if anything, and it's probably more public space influence than enclosed buildings, if you like. I think that's probably the strongest link. I'm not a big fan of placing nature indoors. I don't think it's its natural habitat. It's never something I've been too excited about. But I do like the concept of urban or public spaces in an urban context where you can use nature or even man-made elements to do what nature does, where it shades and it causes a different climatic under some form of either covering or wind shelter or solar shelter or whichever climate you're in. So in summary, the part of nature that I find the strongest influence is the one where you use an equivalent in man-made or otherwise obtained materials that are used in assembly in a way that mimics what nature can do to transform a climate in a location. And it's very local.
Bueno, la naturaleza siempre es un punto de partida. En especial, la piel y el funcionamiento en los sistemas de organismos vivos. Y han sido dos los que nos han gustado mucho. Uno, lo que es la mantarraya, la forma aerodinámica que tiene, prácticamente es un planeador acuático. Y esto lo transformamos en el diseño de algunos edificios, en su piel, en cubiertas, en fachadas. Estas mismas branquias pueden ser manejadas en fachadas. El otro animal, que es más bien el reino de los insectos, son aquellos que tienen un exoesqueleto. Esto también nos ha ayudado al diseño de envolventes arquitectónicas para ser traducida como un exoesqueleto. Por ejemplo, una casa donde prácticamente la estructura es la que está sosteniendo toda la casa. También lo que es el exoesqueleto de una torre de departamentos. Finalmente, la naturaleza sigue siendo este detonador para la inspiración y para la forma arquitectónica.
I think almost everything that I enjoy doing is actually, in one way or another, a response to nature. I personally love the whole exploration of, biomimetics and structures and bone structures, and as an office we spend a huge amount of time exploring how bones, if you cut a bone, how the bone structure works and how nature builds things. I'm actually most interested in human beings as animals and our needs and desires to be in contact with nature. And it's biophilia, the man's desire to be one with nature, it's your comfort conditions. How can you actually create architecture that brings people, maybe not back to nature, but brings nature to them? Because the truth is we probably missed the boat of going back to nature. I think the cities should be as human as possible, discuss. I want a city where I can walk, where I can cycle, where there are trees on the street, and I can see my children walking along.